This is lesson 18, part 3, and we're going to continue to practice together again. If your goal is to develop ease and genuine skill in reading music, I would highly recommend trying to establish some sort of a regular practice routine. Generally, I recommend aiming low for duration and high for frequency, especially initially, just to establish the habit. Ideally 6 out of 7 days a week, and ideally at the same time of day, so it becomes a non-negotiable habit. It's just something you do, like brushing your teeth. If we can think of our body as a small, ignorant child that we're trying to teach something difficult to, it can be very helpful. So the same skills that would be effective in teaching a small child will often be very effective in helping your body to learn something and be able to perform it readily in your practice sessions. So, for example, staying calm, going slowly, being willing to repeat something as often as needed until it makes sense and until you develop ease and fluency with the material.
We can add time or duration to any note or rest value by turning it into a dotted note or a dotted rest value. So for example, I could create a dotted whole note by taking a whole note and putting a dot to the right of the note head. The dot will always be worth half of whatever note it's dotting. So this whole note would be worth a whole note plus half of that note value to represent the dot. So a half note, because a half note is worth half of a whole note. Now, in practicality, what would that really look like? So let's assign our eighth note as our beat or pulse note. And I'm just going to quickly go through our note value pyramid here then and assign specific beat durations. So 1 beat for eighth notes and eighth rests, which means 2 beats for quarter notes and quarter rests, 4 beats for half notes, and 8 beats for whole notes and whole rests, half a beat for 16th notes and 16th rests. If any of this doesn't sound familiar, then please go back and review past lessons where we've gone through this topic in depth. We're going to assign actual beats now to these, the whole note and the half note. We'll have 8 beats for the whole note plus 4 beats for the half note. So a dotted whole note is worth 12 beats in this scenario. Okay, so we can also create a dotted half note by putting a dot to the right of the note head of a dotted half note. That dot will be worth half of the value of the half note. So this dotted half note is worth a half note plus, well, what's half of a half note? Well, a quarter note. If we split a half note into 2 equal parts, it'll be a quarter note. So how many beats does that actually equal? Well, the half note will be 4 in this scenario where the eighth note is our pulse note, and the quarter note will be worth 2 beats. So altogether, that's 6 beats. Notice that the dotted whole note is worth twice as much as the dotted half note. Sounds familiar, right? Just like a whole note is worth twice as much as a half note. Moving on, a dotted quarter note would look like a quarter note with a dot to the right of the note head. And again, that would be worth a quarter note plus half of that value for the dot, so an eighth note, because it takes 2 eighth notes to make 1 quarter note. What would that equal in actual beats? Well, the quarter note, if our eighth note was our pulse note, would receive 2 beats plus 1 beat for the eighth note, so a total of 3 beats. Notice again that means that a dotted half note is worth twice as much as a dotted quarter note. Also that it would take 4 of these dotted quarter notes to equal 1 of the dotted whole notes. Notice how that's exactly the same relationships that we have in this undotted note value pyramid. Let's do one more. So if we have an eighth note that we put a dot on, a dotted eighth note, it would be worth an eighth note plus the dot, which is worth half of whatever note it's dotting. So in this case, a 16th note, because it takes 2 16th notes to make an 8th note. And the actual beat value of that, if the 8th note was our pulse note, would be 1 plus just half a beat for the 16th note. So a total of 1.5 beats. I'm sure you're seeing the pattern by now. So a dotted quarter note is worth twice as much as a dotted 8th note. Notice that that's the same relationship we have here with the undotted note values. A quarter note is worth twice as much as an 8th note. We'll be continuing our practice with Rhythm Workshop by Sally K. Albrecht. We're on exercise 7 of our 4/4 section, and we'll be looking at example 1. So first of all, let's look at our time signature. So the top number tells us how many beats per measure. So there are 4 beats per measure. And the bottom number tells us what kind of note is our beat or pulse note, which note value will get 1 beat. So our bottom 4, we can think of it as the denominator of a fraction, and that'll tell us that a quarter note equals 1 beat. So we can go over to our note and rest value pyramids over here and know that 1 beat will be allotted to each quarter note and quarter rest. Each half note and half rest will receive 2 beats, 4 beats for whole rests and whole notes, and half beat for 8th notes and 8th rests. Since our smallest note value here is a quarter note, it's going to be sufficient to just think in a steady pulse of do's, of 1 beat notes. Remember that our whole notes, the open note heads without a stem, will be held for 4 full beats, and we'll want to keep that pulse going, that silent do pulse going during our rests. Or you can mouth or whisper it if that's easier for you. Setting our metronome at 80, let's clap the beat. 1, 2, ready, clap. 1, 2, ready, speak. Do, 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 do. Remember to repeat these as often as needed. Practice them on your own and slow down the pulse or break it down however you need to be successful at this. Looking at example 2, since we're using the same time signature, we're not going to go through our note and rest value pyramids again. We'll just continue with our metronome at 80. 1, 2, ready, clap. 1, 2, ready, speak. Do, 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 do. Continuing with exercise 10 in the 4/4 section of our book. And we have the same time signature here, so we will not be revisiting the note and rest value pyramids. So remember that our 8th notes here in 4/4 time are going to be our half beat notes. So we're going to say do day for those. That's also our smallest note value. So we're going to make sure we're keeping a steady pulse of do days, either silently inside ourselves or mouthing or whispering those syllables during the rest so that we know how to place our notes. I'm going to set our metronome at 70. And we'll clap the beat first, and we're also going to just say a steady stream of do days before we begin. So 1, 2, ready, clap. Ready, speak. Do day, 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 do day. Okay, so we have that going in our heads, and now we can move ahead with example 5. 1, 2, ready, speak. do day, 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 do. 11 now in the 4/4 section. This is a little bit trickier again. Same time signature though, so we won't break down the note and rest value pyramids again. We're going to look at example 2. So first of all, I'm going to note that my smallest note value is my 8th note. So my do days, my half beat notes. So I'm going to make sure I'm thinking of keeping a steady pulse of do days going. I'm also going to scan ahead here and just look for any tricky looking measures that I might want to mark the beats in. So I see one right here, measure 2. Here's measure 1, here's measure 2. So measure 2. I'm going to mark my do here. The 2 8th notes together will be worth 1/4 note, so that's my first beat. Here's my second beat. My third do will fall right here. And that 8th note with the 8th rest will be worth 1 beat, so that beat is now complete, and here's my last one. So actually, it's not too bad. It's just going to be a do with a silent day here. If I would speak this measure here without a totally stable pulse, but just trying to coordinate the syllables, it would look like this. Do, day, do, day, do, day, do, day, right? Just to kind of orient myself, that would be something I could do. Let's look also at this measure right here. This is measure 4. Here's measure 3 and measure 4. Do, do, do. That's easy enough, but my next do is going to fall in this rest. So I'm just going to try once without being too concerned with an absolutely stable pulse, just coordinating those syllables. So I'll say do, day, do, day, do, day. Day. Looking at the next measure, this is probably the trickiest one. We have a do. Our next do falls here. The 8th rest and 8th note together. Finish out that beat. Here's our next do. And then our final do again falls into the rest. And I could practice saying these syllables. I may even for this measure want to write them in just for today to get a better idea of where all these syllables will need to be spoken and where they're just going to be internally noted. Okay, so I'll write in my do days, which remember we can also know those are our 8th note pulses we're feeling here. And I'm going to underline the syllables I need. Do, day, do. The day will just be held through that do. Do will be silent, and then day. So I'm going to just slowly say this without being too concerned with a stable pulse. Loudly saying the underlined syllables, silently mouthing or whispering the crossed out syllables. So do, day, do, day, do, day, do, day. And then I would probably do that a few more times, maybe even the last time if it's feeling easier, I can just silently, internally say the crossed out syllables, so it could sound something like this. Do, day, do, day. Okay, now I'm going to try it with the metronome. Set at 60 to be nice and slow. We're going to clap the beat. Ready, clap. And let's say a steady stream of 8th notes first of do days. Ready, go. Do day, do day. Do day, do day. It's internalizing that subdivided pulse. Now we're going to do example 2. Ready, speak. Do, do day, do day, do. Do day, do day, do. Do day, do, do day, do day, do, day, do, day, do. Day, do, day, do, day, do. Do, day, do, day. Do, day, do, day, do.